Hey guys, tonight we're heading into the scorching deserts of ancient Persia. The air is dry, the winds whisper like ghostly fire, and there's not a refrigerator in sight, unless you count a mysterious mud brick dome sitting alone under the moon. You step off a dusty camel caravan, stretch your back, and squint into the fading sunlight. The sand is still warm under your feet, and your tongue feels like parchment. All you want is something cool, something impossibly, luxuriously cold. And somehow, thousands of years ago, the Persians made it happen. You're about to witness the first refrigerators in human history, built not with wires or freon, but with wind, shadow, and clever geometry. But fair warning, if you're planning to survive in this climate without knowing how to harness the cold, you're probably going to melt. Literally. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. But only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know where you're listening from, and what time it is there. I always love seeing how far this little time machine reaches. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're in ancient Persia, somewhere between the 5th and 4th centuries BCE, right around when the Achaemenid Empire was at its height. The terrain around you is cracked and golden, a dry plate of earth that seems to shimmer with heat. But as the sun sets, there's a ship. The desert, surprisingly, cools. Not completely, of course. You're not about to shiver, but the air softens just enough that you start to understand why the Persians could dream of ice. Behind you, a caravan settles. Traders unload bolts of dyed silk, jars of honeyed dates, and baskets of saffron from Sogdiana. But among the valuables, one object gets special attention. A crate packed tightly with straw, containing something far rarer than gold. A chunk of ice, wrapped in goat hide, sweating under the final rays of sun. It's been transported over days, maybe weeks, from the mountains. But even then, that's just a temporary fix. To really store ice here, people needed something permanent. That's when you spot it, a curious dome-like structure rising out of the sand like a giant termite mound. It's made of mud bricks, tan and textured, and it has no visible doors or windows, only a small shadowy slit near its base. The surface is slanted at strange angles, and the whole thing gives off the unsettling vibe of a building that's either asleep or watching you. This is a Yakhchāl, which translates literally to ice pit. You didn't expect to find a refrigerator in the desert, but here it is, standing tall like some frozen whisper of defiance against the sun. Built without electricity, without plastic, without even metal. Just an ingenious design and an intimate knowledge of the desert's moods. You duck your head and step inside. It's shockingly cool. The air smells of dust and distant water. The ground beneath your sandals is dry and slightly concave, sloping down into a deep chamber where stored ice would sit through the sweltering months. High above, vents draw hot air upward while cooler air pools below. And here's where it gets weird. Historians still argue whether the Persians fully understood the physics behind their invention. Some say they just followed patterns passed down through generations. Others believe they were deliberately applying early thermodynamic principles. The truth might be somewhere in the middle. Maybe they didn't have the formulas, but they knew what worked. One thing is certain, this wasn't just practical architecture. It was spiritual. Cooling something in the desert felt like a form of magic, or, at the very least, divine wisdom. You brush your fingers along the wall. Thick, textured, and warm from outside sun, but not unbearable. The walls were made from a special mixture of sand, clay, egg whites, lime, and goat hair, creating a kind of ancient insulation, so effective, it makes modern engineers tilt their heads in admiration. Here in this space, sound is muffled. Light barely enters. Time slows. The structure isn't simply a refrigerator. It's a cold cathedral. And in a way, it had to be. This was a land where water meant life, and ice? Ice was life plus luxury, plus power. You take a seat near the pit's edge, where workers would have stacked blocks of ice, each one chipped from frozen ponds during winter, packed with straw, and lowered by hand. The cool air lingers on your skin. A fly buzzes lazily overhead, then thinks better of it and vanishes. Outside, the stars are beginning to show. No city lights to compete, just velvet sky and ancient brilliance. You begin to realize how much the Persians watched the sky. Not just for astrology or prophecy, but for temperature. The desert's coldest hours came just before dawn, and that's when the Yakhchāl worked its best. Your eyelids grow heavier. The hum of distant wind plays across the desert, and for a moment you can almost hear the voices of long-gone engineers debating which angle traps shade best. One of them swears by a steeper slope. Another insists the orientation should face away from Mecca, not for religion, but for wind patterns. A third just drinks water and rolls his eyes. Ancient workplace politics, you suppose? Still, the system worked. Ice stayed frozen for months. Dates were preserved. Even milk could last longer. And in an empire stretching across arid plateaus, that made all the difference. You wake, or rather, drift, into a slightly different part of the story, still nestled in the hushed cool of the Persian desert. The stars remain high and sharp, but your attention shifts from the soft air of the Yakhchāl's interior to its strange, towering presence from the outside. You step back into the night and look up at this structure like it's a sleeping elephant made of sand. The moonlight makes its surface glow faintly, revealing the subtle curves and intentional angles that give it power. From a distance, it almost looks like a giant scoop of upside-down ice cream that somehow survived a desert afternoon. But that odd shape isn't just for show. This is where ancient design gets seriously clever. The outer shell of the Yakhchāl is typically a dome or conical structure, stretching as high as 20 meters in some cases. Why this shape? Well, for one, it minimized sun exposure during the hottest parts of the day. No sharp corners for heat to gather in. And its slanted walls encouraged air to flow upward naturally, creating a slow suction that pulled hot air out while allowing cool air to sink and settle into the lower chambers. A passive cooling system. No wires. No buttons. Just bricks and angles and patient engineering. You circle around the base. The walls are made from sarawoy, a special waterproof mortar mixed from sand, clay, lime, goat hair, and ash. Yes, goat hair. Don't ask how they figured that out, but it worked. This mixture was so durable and insulating that many Yakhchāls have survived intact for centuries, standing their ground in quiet resistance against time and temperature. But the real magic starts underground. You notice small openings near the base, barely wider than a loaf of bread. They lead into a long, narrow channel, sloping down beneath the surface. You kneel and peek inside, and almost instantly, a faint current of cool air brushes your face. Like the desert itself is exhaling. That's the storage chamber, carved deep to insulate the precious ice even further. Below ground, temperatures stabilize, dull. Even in the peak of summer, the inside could remain cool enough to preserve perishable items for weeks, even months. This wasn't just a clever adaptation, it was survival strategy at its most poetic. Historians still debate whether the earliest Yakhchāls were intended strictly for ice, or also used for storing dried fruits, milk, and even meat. Some texts hint at dual use. Others argue that sacred rules dictated different uses for different seasons. Regardless, the core purpose was cold. Preserving it, worshipping it, sharing it. You lean your head against the mud brick dome and feel the faint vibration of wind coursing through the built-in ventilation shafts. These narrow vertical chimneys, badgers, acted like ancient air conditioners. They caught the breeze, channeled it downward, and swept warmer air up and out. It's hard not to be impressed. You've seen luxury smart fridges with Wi-Fi that couldn't pull off what this lump of mud and logic does without breaking a sweat. And here's a funny thing. The architects who built these had no formal thermodynamic theories. They didn't talk about pressure systems or airflow equations. They watched the shadows. They felt how the desert shifted. They noticed where the goats like to sleep at noon, and built accordingly. Who needs a PhD when you have 400 generations of stubborn observation? At some sites, the Yakhchāl was paired with a walled garden called a bay, a microclimate with fig trees and pomegranates growing near shaded pools. These weren't just places to cool ice, they were spaces for people to rest, reflect, and get through the baking midday hours without dissolving into sand-colored soup. You imagine sitting in one of those gardens now, sipping sour cherry sherbet from a clay cup, your feet dipped into a shallow basin. A silk awning flaps softly above your head. Two merchants argue in the background about which mountain's snow makes the better ice. One swears by the Elburz range. The other insists it's all about timing. Harvest the snow too early and it tastes like goat. You smile. Even thousands of years ago, people had strong opinions about frozen things. In the surrounding villages, the Yakhchāl wasn't just a storage unit, it was a seasonal event. Its shape rose out of the sand like a ritual marker. In winter, when the rare cold nights came, workers filled shallow basins outside the dome with water, letting the freezing night air do the work. The ice formed in thin sheets, which they then carefully harvested at dawn, and stacked inside the chamber, layer by layer, separated by straw or sawdust. You picture the workers bundled in wool cloaks, their breath steaming as they crack sheets of ice with wooden mallets. Each blow echoes in the still morning, sharp and satisfying. It's not glamorous work, but it's vital. This is the Empire's cold bank account, a reserve of frost for the blistering months to come. And those angles you noticed earlier? They serve another hidden purpose. When the sun beats down at noon, its rays glide harmlessly along the dome's slope, rather than hitting straight on. Shadow is maximized. Absorption is minimized. It's like the structure wants to stay cool, wants to protect its precious melting treasure. You sit in the sand for a moment, leaning back on your hands and take in the weird, wonderful fact that people once beat the desert without a single drop of refrigerant. They worked with the land, not against it. They listened to wind, tracked shadows, and followed the silence where coolness hid. A soft laugh escapes your lip. You're sitting beside a 2,000-year-old air conditioner that could outlast most of today's tech. There's a slow wisdom to that, a kind of patient genius we don't always make time for anymore. The night deepens. Stars swirl. And the Yakhchāl looms beside you, quiet and eternal, like a monument to calmness itself. You stretch, yawn, and let the gentle air of the desert night carry you toward the heart of the Yakhchāl's brilliance, its ability to make ice. Not just store it, actually create it. It seems impossible, doesn't it? Ice in a desert? But here's where the ancient Persians get delightfully smug. They didn't just haul ice down from the mountains, they grew it, like a strange winter crop. Your sandals crunch softly over gravel as you walk behind the Yakhchāl. There, you find a sunken rectangular pool. It's shallow, less than a foot deep, pand-ringed by low walls that throw long shadows under the moonlight. These are ice-making basins, carefully placed to take advantage of the region's nighttime chill. You crouch beside one and dip your fingers in. The water's surprisingly cold. Even now. You look around. No modern refrigeration, no shade, no artificial wind. Just a shallow basin, still air, and clear desert sky. That's the trick. It's all about the sky. During winter nights, especially in Iran's desert regions, temperatures drop fast. Not by a little. We're talking sub-zero Celsius, freezing territory. It's a strange quirk of deserts. Blistering heat by day, frigid cold by night. Combine that with cloudless skies and still air, and you have what's called radiative cooling. The heat radiates away from the ground into the vast emptiness of the sky above. The Persians didn't have a term for it, but they knew it. They harnessed it. They turned the Earth's own breath against itself. The basin's wide, shallow shape meant more surface area for water to lose heat. The surrounding walls blocked wind, keeping the air calm and still, another key to ice formation. And the orientation? Always north-south to minimize sunlight and catch the breeze just right. Historians still argue whether the ice-making process was an accidental discovery or the result of deliberate experimentation. Some think farmers first noticed ice forming in neglected troughs. Others believe Zoroastrian priests, obsessed with purity and ritual, instructed the construction of these sacred coolers for ceremonial uses. There's no agreement. Just frost-covered footprints in the past. You imagine yourself here, thousands of years ago, just before dawn. Workers in long robes shuffle between the basins, testing the forming ice with calloused fingers. It crunches lightly, crystalline sheets forming in delicate layers. Someone whispers a blessing to the water. Another mutters a complaint about cold toes. The sun is still hiding, but not for long. They have to work quickly. As the sun peaks over the mountains, the workers gather the ice. They use large wooden scrapers to lift the sheets, then break them into chunks using simple stone tools. The ice is then packed, hastily but skillfully, into baskets lined with straw, carried across the compound, and lowered deep into the Yakhchāl chamber. The straw isn't just filler. It insulates the ice, keeps it from fusing into an unusable glacier, and creates tiny air pockets that help slow down the inevitable melting. Straw was the secret sidekick of desert refrigeration, scratchy, unsung, and absolutely essential. You follow one of these imaginary workers in your mind's eye, as he moves rhythmically, collect, crack, carry, pack, until the basin is empty and the Yakhchāl's belly is full once more. It's like a seasonal ritual, half labor, half devotion. By mid-morning, the sun is already unforgiving again. The basins are dry. The water has either frozen and been harvested or warmed and evaporated. Either way, the night's magic is over. But that's fine. The desert gives you just a sliver of winter each night, and the Persians made sure not to waste it. You sit at the edge of the basin, feet dangling in the now empty trough. It's hard to believe something so simple, mud walls, straw baskets, moonlit water, could defeat a desert. But it did. And it still does. Fun fact. Some modern engineers have studied these ice-making methods for use in off-grid refrigeration systems. Turns out, 2,000 years later, the technology isn't outdated, it's just beautifully low-tech. No carbon emissions, no energy bills. Just patience and a deep understanding of the Earth's rhythms. There's something soothing about that, isn't there? The idea that you don't need to conquer nature to thrive, you can just quietly outsmart it. You look around the compound. Not a single moving part in sight. No flashing lights. No humming motors. Just the occasional clink of clay pots and the sleepy rustle of a desert wind. In a world where everything beeps and buzzes, this place feels like a whispered lullaby. Your eyes trace the path from basin to dome, from starlight to shadow. It's not just refrigeration, it's choreography. And you're part of it now, lounging like an accidental ice farmer, slowly becoming one with the quiet logic of ancient design. The moon climbs higher. The air sharpens. Somewhere, a jackal howls, but it sounds more bored than threatening. You pull your cloak tighter and lean back, head resting on warm stone, the memory of cold water still tingling on your fingers. Somewhere between ice and sleep, you smile. The morning sun is barely rising, yet you can already feel the heat sneaking back across the sand. The soft chill from the night's ice-making ritual is fading fast. And with it, the quiet serenity of the frozen basins. But now you're drawn by something livelier, laughter, shouts, and the rhythmic thud of wooden mallets striking ice. You make your way across the dusty path behind the Yakhchāl, drawn by the sounds of celebration. There, just beyond a cluster of low, mud-brick homes, is a crowd of villagers, gathering for a seasonal ritual that feels like half-harvest festival, half-summer survival strategy. Welcome to the Ice Harvest Festival, a once-yearly event where work and play melt together like a sweet sorbet in the sun. Children dart between adults, chasing each other with bits of straw or tossing small slivers of ice, squealing at the cold shock. Someone's trying to get a donkey to wear a garland of desert flowers. It's not going well. In the center of it all stands a long, shallow pit, filled with ice harvested from the night before, cracked, glistening, and gleaming under the desert sun. Men and women work side by side, stacking the blocks onto sledges, baskets, and handcarts. The Yakhchāl doors are flung open wide, like the mouth of a giant desert beast waiting to be fed. But this isn't just storage. It's a show. The ice, once inside the chamber, will be blessed by a local elder, part cooling science, part seasonal superstition. One elderly woman pats a chunk of ice gently with a small sprig of basil, muttering a prayer as though the frost can hear her. You wander among the people, taking in the smells of spiced date cakes, roasted flatbread, and honeyed pomegranate. A boy offers you a cup of meltwater, barely chilled but refreshing in the dry morning air. It tastes faintly of straw and old snow. Historians still argue whether these festivals were widespread public events or more of a village-level tradition. Some evidence points to royal versions, grander affairs where dignitaries dined on chilled grape, jelly and sour cherry syrup. Others suggest it was always local, always humble. A chance to break from the monotony of desert life and welcome the arrival of cold. Either way, it's a rare moment of joy. The Yakhchāl becomes the village's social center, an ancient water cooler, literally and figuratively. Gossip flows as easily as the runoff. Who's marrying who? Whose goat has gone mysteriously missing? Who tried to steal a block of ice last week and slipped face first into a basin? You know, the usual timeless small-town drama. One older man, leaning on a carved walking stick, pulls you aside and tells you a story passed down in his family. His great-great-grandfather once traded a fist-sized lump of Yakhchāl ice for a gold coin. Why? Because a Persian general, exhausted, sunburned, and in the mood for something cool, was willing to pay any price for what felt like a miracle in the heat. That's the thing. This wasn't just convenience. It was status. Access to ice was a symbol of wealth and connection. The larger your ice supply, the more powerful you appeared. Even in ancient times, people flexed with their freezers. But the Ice Harvest Festival wasn't all lightness and laughter. There was real work to be done. Timing mattered. Too late, and the sun turned the ice to mush. Too early, and the harvest was thin and fragile. That's why the community moved like clockwork. One group in charge of scraping, another of hauling, another of stacking and sealing. You follow a group into the heart of the Yakhchāl, watching as they pack the ice into precise formations, slabs separated by layers of straw, all the way down to the pit's lowest level. The temperature inside has already dropped, and you feel your skin tingle as cool air wraps around you like a sigh of relief. Once the chamber is full, the workers close the heavy door, seal it with mud and cloth, and step back in silence. There's something almost sacred in the moment, a collective exhale like a prayer answered. You turn and step back outside. The crowd has thinned. The festival is winding down. In the distance, someone plays a reed flute, a slow, spiraling melody that coils around the warm air. The donkey is still flowerless, looking irritated. The children now nap in the shade of fig trees, flushed with sun and sugar. And you? You're standing in the middle of an ancient celebration most people today have never even heard of. A party for ice. A desert dance for frozen water. It's one of those human contradictions that somehow makes perfect sense. When life is hot, dry and hard, we cling to coolness. Not just as relief but as joy. As a reason to gather. To feast. To laugh. To pause. You sit on the edge of a shallow basin, watching a stray block of ice melt slowly into a puddle, soaking into the cracked earth. You imagine someone 2,000 years ago doing the same thing. Watching, waiting, wondering how something so temporary could feel so eternal. Because cold never lasts. And that's what makes it precious. The festival lingers like a fading perfume. Sweet, dusty, and just a little sticky. As the sun climbs higher and the last traces of early morning coolness melt away, you wander toward the edge of the settlement, where the scent of rosewater and saffron hangs heavy in the air. Someone's cooking something cold. Yes, cold. And now, it's time for dessert. You step beneath the shade of a woven canopy stretched between two acacia poles. Beneath it, women stir large bronze bowls with long-handled paddles, each motion slow and rhythmic. The bowls are nestled in beds of ice, with salt-packed straw insulating the precious chill. The mixture inside? A smooth, golden liquid spiced with cinnamon, rose, and crushed melon seeds. Soon, it will become a treat worthy of kings and emperors. Welcome to the frosty world of falafel, one of the world's oldest frozen desserts. Ancient Persia's answer to sorbet. Not bad for a people living in a land where the average summer day could make your sandals weep. You sit cross-legged on a woven mat as a small clay bowl is placed before you. Inside, translucent rice noodles soaked in semi-frozen rosewater syrup, dusted with crushed pistachios and the faintest kiss of lime. You take a bite. It's cold. It's fragrant. And it makes your teeth tingle. A child next to you squeals in delight and sticks the entire bowl to her forehead for a moment, sighing dramatically. Historians believe the origins of Persian frozen treats stretch back over 2,500 years. While no recipe scrolls survived intact, fragments from poetry, trade records, and royal inventories suggest that ice was often mixed with fruit pulps, sweet syrups, and flower essences, then churned or shaken until it reached the perfect, slushy texture. Not quite ice cream. Not quite slush. Something in between. And it wasn't just for pleasure. Cold desserts played a role in medicine too. Court physicians recommended chilled syrups to soothe fevers, calm tempers, and balance the body's humors. One particularly cranky prince reportedly refused to meet with his advisors unless served a frozen sour cherry drink first. You've had bad Mondays. He had icy tyranny. But not everyone was allowed access. Frozen delicacies were, for centuries, the domain of the wealthy. A merchant might taste faluti once a year, during a celebration. A noble, however, might demand it daily. Some royal palaces even had ice couriers, men who transported blocks from the mountains or yakhchāls on the backs of camels, wrapped in straw, swaddled like newborns. And yes, there were ice taste testers. Their job? Lick the ice first to make sure it hadn't spoiled or absorbed the wrong smells during storage. Not a glamorous title, but in ancient Persia, it beat being a tax collector. You sip a second bowl of frozen saffron milk. It melts quickly, the flavor both creamy and oddly smoky. A nearby storyteller launches into a tale, half legend, half gossip, about a Persian queen who disguised herself as a dessert vendor to spy on her rivals. Her cover was blown when a suitor recognized her favorite combination, fig ice with almond flakes. Scandalous. Delicious. You laugh, but softly. Because it's too hot for loud. And frankly, too peaceful. As you relax under the canopy, you notice a nearby mural, faded but still vivid with blues and golds. It shows a banquet scene. Noblemen reclining on rugs, holding tiny bowls of shaved ice topped with pomegranate seed. One figure, perhaps the king himself, points toward the distant mountains in the background, a subtle nod to where it all began. Historians still argue whether these desserts were served more often in public celebrations or kept strictly within the palace walls. Some say every major city had its own unique frozen delicacy. Others believe only a few privileged cities near the mountains or Yakhchāl networks ever truly enjoyed them. The debate continues, like the slow swirl of syrup in the bottom of your bowl. You shift into the shade a little more. The canopy flutters. A camel grumbles somewhere in the background. Your fingers are sticky with rosewater, and the air smells like summer and sugar. You think of modern freezers, ice cubes on demand, gelato in 10 flavors, frosted donuts and frozen peas. And somehow, none of it feels quite as magical as this. A single bowl of ancient dessert, eaten on a mat, in a desert, made from ice that was coaxed from the stars. And here's the kicker, those ancient frozen treats? They weren't just inventions. They were invitations. To slow down. To gather. To cool off and breathe. Even in the empire's busiest cities, the arrival of chilled sweets was a signal. It's okay to stop for a while. Let things melt slowly. You lie back on the mat. The storyteller's voice fades. The canopy ripples. Somewhere, another batch of saffron syrup is being poured into a bronze bowl, beginning the slow churn of cold and sweetness. And your eyelids grow heavy with the kind of sleep that only comes from full bellies and shade. Your dreams are sweet and cold and tinged with rosewater. But they shift. Fade. Dull. The air is heavier now, not from heat, but from something else. Silence. You open your eyes slowly, unsure if you're still dreaming. The canopy is gone. The crowd has vanished. The scent of sherbet has drifted into memory. You're standing once again near the yawning mouth of the Yakhchāl, though this time the mood has changed. It's quieter. Still. And not just because of the heat. There's something different about how the workers handle the space now. More solemn, more precise. Less chatter. No laughter. You step into the cool shadow of the dome and notice bundles wrapped in thick layers of cloth being lowered into the deep chamber. But they're not blocks of ice. Their bodies. Yes. Tonight you've wandered into the lesser-known purpose of the Yakhchāl, preserving the dead. Not always, and not everywhere, but in some regions, particularly those influenced by Zoroastrian practices, Yakhchāls were used, at least temporarily, to keep the bodies of the recently deceased from decaying in the sweltering heat before final rites could be performed. It's a part of the building's history that's seldom mentioned, but quietly acknowledged. You don't feel fear, just a new layer of reverence. In many parts of ancient Persia, death wasn't something that arrived with wailing and panic. It came like a guest. Inevitable, expected. Still unpleasant, yes, but treated with formality, precision, and, when possible, a touch of engineering. You watch as a group of mourners carry a carefully wrapped body toward the Yakhchāl. They pause at the entrance. A priest murmurs something soft, his voice barely audible over the breeze, and then the bundle is handed down into the chamber. Ice packs, wrapped in straw, are arranged carefully around the cloth like frozen sentinels. No grand ceremonies, just the quiet hum of process. Historians still argue whether this function was officially sanctioned or simply a practical village workaround. Some believe Zoroastrian fire temples rejected the idea entirely, insisting that exposure, dakma, was the only proper rite. Others argue that desert communities far from the temples developed hybrid customs, using the cold to delay burial until the appropriate rituals could be performed. And here's where it gets stranger. There are folk tales, whispered between generations, about bodies remaining perfectly preserved in the ice for weeks, even months. One story tells of a traveler found dead at the edge of the salt flats, his family too far to reach him in time. His body was placed in the Yakhchāl, next to the ice and the rosewater, between baskets of winter apricots and dates. By the time his relatives arrived, he looked as if he'd merely napped for too long. Another tale tells of a desert bride, struck by sudden fever the night before her wedding. She died before dawn. Her mother, desperate not to let her beauty fade, hid her body in the ice chamber and told no one for 3 days, long enough to host the wedding feast as if nothing had happened. It wasn't until the groom lifted the veil that the deception shattered. Are the stories true? Probably not. But that doesn't mean they weren't believed. Cold, in a place like this, holds mystery. It halts time. And if time can be stopped, even briefly, then maybe, just maybe, so can death. You sit inside the Yakhchāl again, the air cool and still. No workers this time. Just you, a few sleeping shadows, and the low thrum of memory. You run your hand along the stone floor and imagine what it felt like to be someone who knew you might one day rest here, not forever, but for a little while. Suspended. Paused. Preserved until the world was ready to say goodbye. It's not frightening. It's logical, kind, a way of giving the desert a moment to breathe before it takes what it must. A small breeze whispers through one of the badgers overhead. Dust drifts lazily in a shaft of light. You close your eyes and try to feel the heartbeat of the place. Not fast or loud. Just steady, like ice melting or a straw crackling or a body letting go. You wake again to the clink of pottery and the soft tread of feet outside. The day has resumed. The Yakhchāl will return to its primary duties soon. Cooling milk, storing ice, hiding sweet treats from nosy goats. But for a brief moment, it became something else. A tomb. A time capsule. A cooler for the soul. And maybe that's what made it sacred, not just because it held cold, but because it held moments. Preserve them. Let them wait. Outside the Yakhchāl, the sun leans lazily on the edge of the horizon, spilling its gold across the desert like a painter with no budget for restraint. You squint toward the low hills, but something else catches your attention, something rhythmic, rumbling, and growing louder. The unmistakable plodding of hooves. Camels. And not just one or two. A caravan, strung together like a line of desert pearls, wends its way toward the village. Each camel lumbers with the same unbothered dignity, swaying side to side like it's walking to a beat no human can hear. You count a dozen, maybe more, each draped in faded cloth and burdened with precious cargo. You shuffle closer. The caravan is delivering something essential. It's not spices, not gold, not frankincense or myrrh or any of that biblical flair. It's ice. Blocks of it, wrapped tightly in layers of woven straw and sheepskin, pulled from nearby mountains, or carefully harvested from night-frozen ponds, and now making their journey across blistering miles of sun-blasted terrain. Welcome to the Persian Empire's cold supply chain, chain. You might think ice in the desert would be rare to the point of fantasy, and you'd be right. That's what made it so valuable. Ice wasn't just for cooling drinks or storing figs. It became a currency of comfort, a luxury item, a symbol of status, and, occasionally, a tool of political leverage. One whispered tale tells of a regional governor who denied a neighboring village access to the royal Yakhchāl during a drought. The retaliation? That village bribed camel drivers to deliver ice blocks overnight from a rival city. The governor awoke to find his own citizens sipping chilled pomegranate juice under his balcony. That's politics, baby. Cold and petty. And moving ice across the desert wasn't just a matter of logistics, it was an art form. Drivers knew exactly how much straw to pack. They timed departures to travel mostly by night. Some even wet the straw before wrapping, leveraging evaporative cooling to delay melt. Camels were chosen carefully, older ones for their endurance, younger ones for their speed. If a block melted too much mid-journey, drivers were known to reshape the remnants into spheres or wedges, claiming they were royal commissions of special form. Historians still argue whether this was clever improvisation or good old-fashioned fraud. And yet, no matter how smart the methods, the desert always took a cut. Meltage was inevitable. At best, a caravan might lose 15–30% of its ice before reaching its destination. But that didn't stop the trade. Ice was worth it. Sometimes caravans weren't moving ice to the people, they were bringing goods to the Yakhchāl. Dates, fish, herbal concoctions, meat wrapped in saffron-dyed cloth. Anything valuable that might spoil without the chill. The Yakhchāl became a bank vault of perishables. And like any good vault, it was guarded. In some wealthier towns, ice guardians were appointed. Often older men or trusted merchants, who kept ledgers of who stored what, and for how long. You imagine one now, perched at the dome's entrance, stylus in hand, suspicious of your dusty tunic. You try to look casual. He squints, unimpressed. You pretend to admire the camels instead. There's even an old scroll, semi-legendary, that lists Yakhchāl taxes, tariffs imposed on foreign merchants storing goods within the structure. Whether the scroll is real or not, it hints at something deeper, the economic muscle these early refrigerators flexed. But not always business and bureaucracy. Sometimes when no one's looking, one of the camel drivers breaks off a sliver of ice, no bigger than a coin, and slips it into a flask of grape must. He doesn't say anything. He just leans back against the camel's flank, takes a sip and sighs. Even in the middle of a system built on regulation and profit, human delight sneaks in. You find yourself walking alongside one of the older camels now. Its eyes are milky with age, but its pace is steady. You pat its side. It doesn't care. And suddenly you realize, this wasn't just about survival. The whole thing, the Yakhchāl, the ice caravans, the bribes and the ice guardians, was about comfort, yes, but also pride. Innovation. A refusal to let the desert win. A culture drawing cool breath in the face of overwhelming heat. As the caravan settles into the village square, the camels are unburdened with care. Ice blocks are carried to the Yakhchāl with reverence, like offerings to an ancient god. You follow one, hands half outstretched, as if the sheer presence of cold might cleanse your fingers of the heat's stubborn cling. A gust of wind swirls dust through the square. The sky begins to blush purple. Children appear with clay cups, waiting for scraps of chipped ice. One driver indulges them, breaking off curls with a small hook tool. The kids cheer. One yells, "It tastes like snow." Another replies, "What's snow?" The driver just winks. You chuckle. That's the thing, isn't it? In this world, where most people may never see a true snowflake, ice becomes a story, a tale to be passed around like a secret. And tonight you've heard it. The ice has made it home. Inside the Yakhchāl, You watch as two men carefully slide a fresh block into place, their movements slow, reverent, as if handling something alive. And in a way they are. This is not just frozen water, it's a chunk of mountain tamed and transported across scorching wilderness. A miracle in solid form. The block scrapes gently across the cool stone floor, sliding into the shadows where dozens of others wait, some shimmering with condensation, others shrouded in layers of straw and hushed anticipation. The ice doesn't speak, but it holds secrets. Of mountains you haven't seen, of hands you'll never meet, of nights colder than your dreams can fathom. You lean against the dome's thick wall and close your eyes. There's a scent in the air. Not cold exactly, more like clean. A whisper of moisture in an otherwise parched world. You'd think the Yakhchāl would smell musty or damp, but it doesn't. It smells like silence and stone, like time slowed down to a crawl. You're not alone. A young boy tiptoes in after the workers have gone, carrying something wrapped in linen. He kneels, peels back the cloth. Inside, dates. But not just any dates. These have been soaked in rosewater and cardamom, and the aroma is enough to stir your stomach despite the late hour. He places them near the freshest block of ice, careful not to let them touch. Just close enough for the cold to coax them into a longer life. A quiet preservation. Then, with a glance your way and a shy nod, he slips out again. This ritual, the personal storing of treats, is not uncommon. In cities where the wealthy have private chambers within the Yakhchāl, families keep fruits, cheeses, even small jars of saffron-laced yogurt hidden in the chill. Some are saved for weddings or births. Others are simply for when the heat feels unbearable and you need a taste of something gentle. One 11th century poem, scratched onto the side of a merchant's scroll, described cold quince melting on my tongue like a poem whispered through snow. Was he exaggerating? Probably. But you want to taste that now, don't you? Historians still argue whether yakhchāls were ever used to store medicine, early cooling for herbal poultices or treatments, but recent excavations did uncover ceramic jars with traces of mint and willow bark near the lowest levels. Whether for healing bodies or indulging taste buds, the principle remains. This place was more than storage. It was salvation. And in some cases, vengeance. There's a half-myth, passed from trader to trader, about a feuding pair of merchants in ancient Yazd. One had stored a prized honey syrup confection in the Yakhchāl. The other bribed a guard to swap it with pickled onions. The next banquet? A disaster. Embarrassment, shouting, lawsuits, Persian style. The story ends with the onion merchant being exiled to a region with no Yakhchāl at all. A punishment worse than death if you believe the whispers. Outside, the sky has gone velvet. Stars freckle the heavens like spilled salt, and the village hums low with night sounds, laughter from a window, the clink of ceramic cups, a goat bleating once before settling down. You step out of the dome, drawn toward the still warm walls. The outside is rough to the touch, cracked and weathered but unwavering. Like the culture that built it, layered, practical, a little rough in the humor department, but resilient as bedrock. A soft breeze brushes your face, and with it comes the scent of wet earth. Somewhere nearby, a qanat is gurgling to life. These underground aqueducts, ancient marvels in their own right, often fed the pools used in early ice making. Engineers would position shallow basins near the mouth of a qanat, letting water fill them during the day. At night, the dry desert air would flash freeze the surface, especially during winter months. You imagine the quiet of those nights, men bundled in wool, breath fogging as they crouch over thin ice, scoring it into sheets. Some wore felt-soled sandals to avoid cracking the delicate top layer. A few even claimed to chant to the moon for swifter freezing. Was it superstition? Probably. But you have to admit, there's a certain poetry to it. In the same breath, a reminder. These methods only worked in the coldest months. The rest of the year, families depended on what was already stored, a kind of seasonal trust, like bottling up winter to survive the slow burn of summer. The Persians weren't the only ones doing this. The Chinese had their own isa houses. So did the Romans. But Persia's yakhchāls were different, bigger for one, and public. Shared. Part of the community rather than hidden behind palace gates. They weren't just for emperors and elites. They were for anyone who could trade, store, or sneak their way in. One particularly infamous baker was caught stashing saffron-laced ice cream in a side chamber, selling spoonfuls out the back of his shop for triple the price. Instead of being punished, the story goes, the governor made him the official supplier for royal feasts. Because sometimes, the coldest ideas are also the sweetest. You turn back toward the village, eyes adjusting to the dark. A cat slinks across the path in front of you. In the distance, the caravan is bedding down. Drivers whisper stories under woolen blankets, sipping warm tea while surrounded by the last traces of snow that once capped mountain. And behind you, the Yakhchāl stands. Silent, proud, impossible. Not just a structure, not even just a fridge, but a time capsule of ingenuity, holding not only ice, but the dreams and cleverness of a people who refuse to bow to their environment. The caravan is asleep, but your mind isn't. It wanders, following the scent of ice and clay, drifting back through the narrow alleyways of ancient Persian cities, where the Yakhchāl once ruled summer like a silent monarch. Every house, every alley, every market stall had its own relationship to that cold dome outside the walls. Some saw it as luxury. Others? As necessity. You picture an old woman, calloused hands, sharp eyes, haggling for a chipped bowl of chilled pomegranate syrup at the bazaar. She doesn't care that it's expensive. Her grandson has a fever, and ice water infused with rose petals is the only thing he'll drink. That bowl, glistening with melting red juice, may as well be gold. This wasn't rare. In fact, many Persians believed that ice, when combined with rose water, had medicinal powers, cooling the temperament, calming the nerves. Physicians would recommend it for headaches, agitation, or what they vaguely called overheated blood. Whether it truly healed or simply offered relief from the sun, it didn't matter. The placebo was part of the magic. You walk through this imagined city in your mind, turning corners that smell of cumin and sandalwood. A boy runs past you with a chunk of ice wrapped in thick felt. He's grinning. The errand is his honor. Behind him, the baker is shouting something about saffron prices, while across the way, two girls peek through curtains to watch a foreigner try his first spoonful of Yelda, a frozen noodle dessert, stringy and sweet, that was once the pride of Shiraz. Yes, ancient Persia invented ice cream. Of course they did. Historians still argue whether these early ice creams were reserved for royalty or sold on the streets like bread. But recent texts suggest a little of both. One courtier's diary from the 9th century brags about pistachio syrup poured over snow, served with melon slices so cold they steamed in the desert air. You don't even need to be hungry to crave that. You pause near a tiled fountain, its base decorated with blue and gold fish, chasing each other in lazy loops. This water, you realize, might have once helped cool the city's central ice pool. These pools weren't just functional, they were designed with aesthetic pleasure in mind. Form and function blended like honey in warm milk. Nearby, in a quiet courtyard, a group of scholars debate logistics. One unfurls a map. Another adjusts a wax tablet. They're arguing over the optimal shape for future Yakhchāls. Should the dome taper more sharply to maximize thermal resistance? Should the base sink deeper into the earth for better insulation? The debate is civil but passionate. That's what innovation looked like. Not glamorous experiments, but dusty conversations between men who measured with ropes and built with sand. You lean against a wall and feel the city breathing. Not literally, of course. But the wind carries stories here. It weaves between bricks, curls around chimneys, and rustles through palm fronds that line the inner courtyards. It feels like a whisper from the past, nudging you closer. Closer to a moment. In one sun-bleached neighborhood, you find a ceremony. A wedding, maybe? Children toss dried rose petals into the air, while elders pour chilled sharbat, a syrupy drink made from barberries and mint, into hammered copper cups. You can see the condensation gathering, tiny rivers running down the side. There's laughter, music, a clatter of spoons, and beneath it all, the unmistakable pride of people who've tamed their heat. Not conquered it, not escaped it, but balanced it with grace. One man raises his glass and toasts the ice. May it never melt before the party ends, he laughs, and the others nod solemnly. In this world, ice is time. Time to celebrate, to pause, to preserve joy just a little longer before it disappears back into steam. Not everyone gets that time. There are stories of caravans caught in storms, of Yakhchāl shipments lost in the salt flats, of ice thieves who were rumored to trade frozen water for gold teeth. Truth? Fiction? No one's sure. But the stories remain, layered like the straw between each block of ice. Fragile, but real enough to keep alive. Historians still debate whether Persia's network of Yakhchāls represented the first scalable cold chain in human history. The Romans had their fish cellars. The Chinese used deep pits. But the Persian system, it combined seasonal storage, transport logistics, urban distribution, and even a whisper of refrigeration science, all without electricity, compressors, or any of the machines we take for granted. They used geometry. They used shade. They used the air itself. You return to the present just as a wind stirs the curtain behind you. The caravan is awake again. Somewhere, a camel groans. Someone coughs. The air is warmer than before, but inside the Yakhchāl, the cold still holds. It's not eternal. It doesn't need to be. It just needs to last until the next freeze. You wonder what will become of these domes centuries from now. Will tourists stand outside them with plastic water bottles and selfie sticks, unaware that once these towers saved lives? Or maybe engineers will rediscover their principles, replicate the design in refugee camps or off-grid villages. Because when the electricity fails, nature is still clever, and so are the people who listen to it. The moon is high now, casting long shadows across the sand. The Yakhchāl glows faintly under its light, like a memory that refuses to fade. And in that glow, you realize something comforting. Not everything valuable comes from power or speed or noise. Sometimes the most remarkable human achievement is learning how to wait for winter. You wake before dawn, stirred not by noise, but by a strange, delicious stillness. The desert, for once, holds its breath. You stretch, bones aching pleasantly from yesterday's walk, and step outside your tent into the soft blue gloom of early morning. The Yakhchāl stands nearby, a quiet giant, still beaded with dew. Today you'll finally see it from the inside. The caretaker meets you by the domed entrance. He's older than the hills, at least by reputation, and his turban is wrapped with the kind of perfect nonchalance that only comes from decades of practice. He doesn't speak much but nods, gestures, and pulls open the thick clay door that creaks like a ship's hull. You enter, and immediately, the temperature drops. Not sharply, not like modern air conditioning. It's a subtle thing, a gentle exhale of coolness that brushes your skin like silk. You step forward and your footfalls echo in the belly of the dome. This is the heart of the Yakhchāl. The geometry stuns you. You've seen diagrams, of course. But to be inside one? It's like standing in a whispering cathedral carved from dust and intention. The conical walls spiral upward to a circular eye at the top, narrow and deliberate, like a pupil. That's the air vent, positioned to encourage just the right amount of airflow. Hot air rises and escapes, while cooler air is drawn in below. Passive, elegant, and effective. The floor sinks slightly, leading to the main ice pit. It's ringed by smooth clay bricks and lined with compacted earth, engineered to resist both heat and seepage. There's still ice down there. Yes, in the middle of a desert summer. And not just some slush in the corner, actual slabs stacked and staggered like sleepy beasts. You kneel beside one, pressing your palm gently against its glassy skin. It shouldn't exist here, and yet it does. A remnant of winter, resting quietly in the sand. The caretaker chuckles and drops a small linen-wrapped bundle beside you. Inside, a handful of rock salt, a wedge of preserved lemon, and, yes, a tiny bowl of frozen pomegranate syrup. Breakfast, ancient style. You sip it slowly, tasting centuries. Pipe down. Sweet. Cooling. Your heartbeat slows. Historians still argue whether Yakhchāl interiors were strictly utilitarian, or if they also served ritual or ceremonial purposes. Some recovered artifacts hint at altars or decorative inlays. Others suggest gatherings, communal moments held in these cold sanctuaries. But nothing conclusive. The debate lingers like breath in winter air. There's a theory, one that scholars hesitate to publish because it sounds too poetic, that some Persians saw the Yakhchāl not just as storage, but as an earthly attempt to bottle time, to trap a season, to preserve a feeling. Like amber holding the ghost of a summer insect, these domes held frost through fire, memory through oblivion. The caretaker points upward. High above, a bird has nested on the inner rim of the dome, its silhouette a perfect curve against the pale sky. Life clinging to the architecture of survival. You smile. Of course. And just as you're about to ask a question, maybe about maintenance, maybe about how long the ice lasts, you hear it. A crack. Not loud. Barely a whisper. But unmistakable. The ice is shifting. It creaks again, echoing across the chamber. A deep, groaning sound like a sleeping beast rolling over. You're not in danger, it's normal. Ice moves, contracts, exhales. Still, it's enough to remind you that even in stillness this structure breathes. Outside, the sun begins to rise. You step back through the entrance, blinking in the golden light. The caretaker lingers behind, his shape shrinking in the shadow of the dome. You wonder if he spent his whole life here, tending to the cold like a gardener tending shade. You walk away slowly, glancing back only once. The Yakhchāl sits calmly against the growing heat. Nothing urgent, nothing proud. Just present. As if saying, yes, I'm here. I always have been. As you return to the caravan, your mind drifts again, this time to more modern thoughts. Could these ancient techniques help us today? In places where power grids flicker, where refrigerators fail, where climate change knocks at every door? Actually, yes. Some architects and environmental engineers have begun studying Yakhchāls with fresh eyes. There are experimental housing projects using passive cooling domes based on these ancient shapes. Low-tech, state-of-the-art. Sustainable, state-of-the-art, and beautiful. You imagine a refugee camp somewhere in northern Africa, not rows of plastic tents, but smooth clay mounds, domes rising like sleeping turtles from the sand. Inside, safe, clean, cool air. Kids resting. Grandmothers sipping something cold from tin cups. Nature's design, revisited. Even corporations have noticed. One startup attempted to design a zero-electricity refrigerator using similar airflow principles. It wasn't perfect, nothing is, but the idea sparked discussion. Engineers across continents began asking, what if ancient wisdom was the missing algorithm? Historians still argue whether such crossovers are homage or theft. Should we be reviving these systems, or simply respecting them? Is modern adaptation honoring tradition or rewriting it? The debate goes on. Maybe it always will. You reach your tent again, stomach pleasantly full of pomegranate and frost. Your body is warm, but the memory of that cool chamber lingers like mint on your tongue. You lie down. Touch. And close your eyes. Above, the dome of the sky begins to brighten, its own kind of Yakhchāl, keeping the stars in deep freeze until the next night. You drift back into dreams, but not for long. Because the next part of the journey is calling, and this time, it's not just about storing ice. It's about how the ancient Persians moved it. Yes, they actually transported frozen water across deserts, using a system so bizarrely brilliant, it might just make your modern freezer feel underachieving. You wake to the soft clatter of wheels on stone. Not the roar of engines. Not the beep of backing trucks. Just the creak and roll of a cart, wooden, deliberate, pulled by a pair of donkeys that look like they were carved from sun and dust. They're hauling a slab of ice. Wrapped tightly in thick felt and straw, it glistens faintly despite the coverings. That's the trick, insulation without electricity. The felt traps cool air, while the straw absorbs sweat like condensation. Together they slow down the inevitable melt. Not forever, but long enough. These deliveries were no casual affair. Ice was precious. It was wealth on wheels. A block like this might be bound for a nobleman's table, a merchant's cooler, or a public feast. Even in the heart of summer, some royal banquets featured chilled sherbets and frosty desserts, status symbols carved from frozen water. You walk beside the cart, the air shimmering with heat. The driver, an old woman with a sun-wrinkled face and a wide grin, tells you stories as she flicks the reins. She swears by the camel bladder trick. What? You ask, politely suspicious. She laughs and explains. Some couriers use dried camel bladders to hold and insulate small chunks of ice or frozen syrup. Gross? Sure. But highly effective. Nature's original ice pack. Historians still argue whether this was standard practice or a rare regional hack. But the records exist, and the mental image refuses to leave your brain. The cart crests a dune, and down below you spot a qanat, that ancient underground waterway you learned about earlier. This one's lined with trees, a miracle in motion. You squint and notice something else, a series of shallow pits nearby, shaded by half-roofs made of reeds and cloth. You jog closer. These are ice rest stops. Think of them like way stations. The ancients knew they couldn't get ice across the desert in one go, so they designed pauses, spots to cool the cargo, rewrap the bundles, and let the donkeys drink. Some even had small underground cellars, barely big enough for a man to stand, but cool enough to buy a few more precious hours. You descend into one, and instantly feel the difference. 10 degrees cooler. Maybe 15? Enough for the block of ice to stop weeping and just exist. Just like the Yakhchāl itself, these pits use passive cooling, buried walls, shaded roofs, and carefully angled ventilation. The woman ties up her donkeys and offers you a cup of something sharp and minty. You drink, grateful. She watches you with a twinkle in her eye. You're wondering if it's all worth it, she says. You nod, embarrassed. She shrugs. The ice melts, the syrup is gone, but the effort stays. That's the point. That one lands. Back in the daylight, you continue walking, eventually arriving at a bustling oasis town. Here, the ice is more than novelty, it's commerce. In the central square, a group of boys sell chilled rosewater drinks from a stone basin. A crowd has gathered, passing tin cups, laughing, sighing with pleasure. You join them, drink again, and marvel at how something so simple can feel so divine. And then you notice something unusual. A large stone slab embedded in the plaza, carved with shallow indentations. A merchant explains that during festivals, they'd lay the ice out on this slab, sprinkle it with saffron and sugar, and let people chip away their own piece, a kind of ancient Persian popsicle bar. Of course they did. There's also a fragment of folklore here, almost certainly apocryphal, but too charming to ignore. It says that once, during a blistering drought, an ice block fell from a cart and cracked open to reveal a frozen frog, still intact. The villagers took it as a sign from the gods, either a miracle or a warning, depending on which grandmother you ask. Some claimed it was an omen of rebirth. Others swore the frog cursed the next harvest. Historians still argue whether the tale was symbolic, a misremembered myth, or a bit of exaggerated market gossip. But one thing's certain, people remembered it. You wander away, mind buzzing. It's hard not to see this entire system as an ancient logistical ballet, ice mined in winter, stored in domes, transported in straw bundles, rested in desert pits, and served like treasure. No diesel. No wires. Just cleverness and clay. You sit beneath a tree, letting the dappled light pattern your lap. The city moves gently around you. Children chasing goats, merchants calling prices, the wind nudging your hair like a lazy river. And in that moment, it's impossible not to feel awe. They weren't just surviving the heat. They were dancing with it, designing around it, outsmarting it with a grace we've almost forgotten. You wonder, how much of what we call modern is really just memory, repackaged with wires? You lean back, close your eyes, and imagine the next destination. Somewhere colder, higher. Because, yes, soon you'll travel into the mountains, to the ice harvesters themselves. The ones who cut blocks under starlight, then hauled them home beneath blazing skies. But not yet. For now, you rest in the heart of an ancient town, sipping cold rose water under a tree, older than any map. You wake to the whisper of wind curling through cedar branches. The air is thinner here and crisper too. The kind that nips your skin even in sunlight. You've left the oasis behind. Left the bustle and the carts and the donkey drivers and their iced mint drinks. Now, You're climbing. The mountains of Persia rise ahead, jagged and proud, brushing the clouds like they belong to another world. And in a way, they do. Because here, high above the sweltering plains, lies the birthplace of all that carefully transported ice. You're not walking this time. You're riding a shaggy pack mule that seems mildly offended by your existence. It huffs and snorts every few steps, like it's judging you for bringing soft shoes to such serious terrain. The path is narrow, the rocks slick with early melt, but the mule knows its way. This is a route carved not by emperors, but by ice harvesters, men whose winter work made summer life below possible. You round a bend and see them, clinging to the edge of a frozen lake like ghosts in layered wool and goatskin. Each man carries a curved metal saw, dull from use. They move slowly, methodically, scoring the surface of the lake into a massive checkerboard of glinting line. This isn't random hacking. It's geometry, each cut mapped for weight, size, and hullability. You dismount, breath fogging. A worker beckons. His face is half hidden behind a scarf, but his eyes smile. He gestures for you to help. And why not? You're already dreaming. He shows you how to guide the saw. You push with him. It bites through the ice with a growl. After minutes that feel like hours, the block cracks free, nearly a meter wide, maybe 20 centimeters thick and shockingly heavy. It shudders in your grip like a living thing. They slide it out with wooden hooks onto woven mats of reed, then quickly wrap it in felt. This is not your modern freezer shelf. This is muscle, coordination, cold fingertips, and trust. One of them, older, leaner, quiet, tells you this ice will be on the back of a mule before sunset, starting a 3-day descent. He doesn't speak much, but when he does, it's poetic. He calls the ice white fire. You ask how long they've been doing this. He shrugs. Longer than we've been naming mountains. And he's not wrong. Records of mountain ice harvesting go back thousands of years. Ancient Persians climbed up here every winter with nothing but hand tools, animal hides, and patience. Some say the earliest techniques began under the Achaemenid Empire. Others claim local tribes had the know-how even before Cyrus dreamt of Persia. Historians still argue whether these methods were born independently in each region, or shared along Silk Road paths. Either way, they worked, and persisted. Your guide shows you an ancient snow cave nearby. You duck inside, brushing past a felt curtain hardened by frost. It's dark. Quiet. The kind of quiet that pushes into your ears and settles there. Inside, blocks of ice are stacked like treasure. Not too high. Not too close. Air must circulate. It's natural refrigeration, optimized through trial, error, and frostbite. The cave smells like earth and iron. The floor is padded with straw. On a wall scratched with charcoal drawings, you spot what might be a tile. Thick lines counting harvests maybe, or families owed. One symbol looks like a camel with a cube on its back. Another is just a spiral, slowly tightening. Outside, snow begins to fall in soft, hesitant flakes. You help load a mule. The ice block is swaddled tighter than a royal baby. You watch the animal start down the slope, led by a boy no older than 12. His boots are too big. His grip on the reins too sure. He whistles a tune that might be centuries old. He doesn't look back. You ask your guide if he ever worries about the blocks melting. He grins, revealing one missing tooth and a lifetime of stories. Melt? Of course they melt. Everything does. But they melt down there, in the hands of people who need them. That's what matters. That one sticks with you. Later you sit around a fire with the harvesters. They roast walnuts and pass around a bitter tea that could wake the dead. Someone brings out an old game board, scratched into a flat rock, played with colored pebbles. The laughter here echoes off the cliffs like it's been echoing forever. Someone tells the tale of a legendary block of ice that made it all the way to Persepolis, delivered by mule, cart, boat, and finally carried by hand to a royal feast. When it arrived, still perfectly intact, the king declared it the cold heart of the gods. Others say it was just a fluke. The right wins. A lucky cave. A slightly overcast summer. Historians still argue whether it even happened. But locals? They believe. The fire dies low. Snow dusts the coals. One of the harvesters begins humming, low, tuneless, but soothing. You lay back against a mound of straw, eyes half closed, breath clouding gently upward. The mountain exhales around you. You're not cold. You're not afraid. You're part of something both quiet and colossal. A cycle of sweat, snow, and patience, where the journey of a single ice block spans worlds and still ends melting sweetly in someone's hand. You drift off wondering how much effort, how many hands, how many years it took for one chilled sip of water to reach a tongue in the heat. And how many such systems we've buried beneath wires and whirring fans, forgetting the stories they once held? But not tonight. Tonight, you remember. You wake to a hollow thunk, wood against stone. Blinking, you find yourself in a courtyard. Sunlight slices through a latticed roof overhead, warming your face but not the polished tile beneath you. Around you, servants move in rhythmic precision, balancing clay pots as they wind their way around square pools of still water. This is no mountain camp. You're in a Persian noble's summer home, somewhere far from the icy ridges, but still ruled by their gifts. The Yakhchāl here isn't hidden away in the corner. It's the centerpiece of the courtyard, proudly rising like a beehive woven from whitewashed dreams. Its shadow cuts across the ground like a sundial, marking both time and temperature. You step closer. The door is open. No grand vault, no lock or steel gate. Just thick walls and clever angles. The inside smells faintly of earth and stone. Cool, like the breath of a deep well. You step in slowly. The light fades behind you, replaced by a bluish glow bouncing off the layered ice. You're not alone. A boy is crouched beside a clay urn, his small hands busy scooping shaved ice into a silver bowl. He sprinkles something over it, rose water by the scent, and glances up at you with a look that says, "Well, you've never had summer before?" He passes you a second bowl. The cold bites your teeth, and the perfume dances across your tongue like a garden on a breeze. It's absurdly refreshing, so much so that you forget to ask how the ice got here. But you know, don't you? You were just there. And that's the magic. Here in the heart of Persia, ice becomes more than utility. It's not just preservation, but presentation. A luxury, yes, but also a message. We can tame the sun. We can sculpt cold into comfort. This noble family uses the Yakhchāl for everything. Preserving saffron cream desserts. Storing fruits wrapped in linen. Even chilling wine before it's poured into silver goblets etched with images of lions and lotus blooms. One elderly servant explains that ice is used in medicinal treatments too. Crushed and pressed to fevers. Stirred into herbal tinctures. Once, she whispers, the queen demanded a bowl of icy pomegranate seeds during childbirth. No one knows if it helped, but she survived, and the tradition stuck. Historians still argue whether ice was reserved only for the elite, or if it occasionally reached poorer families during extreme heat waves. Some say generous lords shared surplus ice at market festivals. Others believe peasants only saw ice if they worked in harvesting caravans. You choose to believe the generous version, because why not? Later, you're guided into a tiled bathhouse adjacent to the courtyard. The contrast hits you immediately. Steam curls from hot pools, fogging the glass and copper surfaces. But tucked into one corner is a cold plunge, fed directly from Yakhchāl meltwater. A bather slips in and lets out a gasp so sharp you feel it in your ribs. You dip your fingers, instantly numb. This isn't just comfort. This is technology as a ritual. A scholar visiting from Babylon explains that such integrated cooling systems weren't common elsewhere in the ancient world. While the Romans had their frigidarium, and the Egyptians harnessed nighttime breezes to chill pots of water, Persia was doing something bolder, actively preserving and transporting ice across climates and class lines. He draws a quick diagram in the sand, arrows, gradients, airflow channels. It looks like a puzzle, and maybe it is. One solved long ago with little more than mud bricks, reeds, and really smart airflow math. You wander back outside. It's late afternoon now. The air is heavier. Cicadas buzz in the trees beyond the garden wall. Someone serves slices of frozen melon on a copper tray. The sun licks the edges and droplets beat along the rind like jewels. You watch one drop fall. It hits the tile with a sound like a whisper. That's the thing about ice, it never lasts. But its impermanence is part of the design. Part of the delight. Cooling in a hot climate is like catching smoke. Like bottling wind. And the Persians didn't just catch it. They made an entire lifestyle around it. Even their art reflects it. In one corner of the courtyard hangs a tapestry depicting Achaemenid couriers riding through desert storms, cloaks flying behind them, one saddlebag clearly marked with a symbol for ice. Were they really transporting frozen treats? Maybe. Or maybe it's just wishful embroidery. You step back into the Yakhchāl one last time. The boy from earlier is gone, but his silver bowl rests on a stone ledge, empty but glistening. You imagine generations of children sneaking icy mouthfuls behind their parents' back. Of nobles showing off chilled desserts to wide-eyed visitors. Of servants carefully measuring just how long a block of ice would last before it returned to water, and thus, to memory. As you leave the structure, you place your palm against its wall. It's cool. Surprisingly smooth. You realize, it's not the ice that's ancient, it's the human desire to tame heat, to surprise the senses, to take control over something as fleeting as temperature. You smile. Because that, somehow, is deeply relatable. The night stretches long over Persia now. The stars bloom overhead, sharp and numerous, as if someone spilled crushed glass across velvet. You're lying on a rooftop terrace, propped up by cushions, a thin cotton sheet over your legs. Around you, nobles and servants alike have gathered to sleep under open skies, a tradition as ancient as the domes that dot the skyline. But, below you, buried in shadow and silence, the Yakhchāl still hums. Not literally, of course. It's not mechanical. But it has a presence, a steady, cooling pulse you can feel in your bones. You imagine it like a beating heart beneath the surface, circulating cold through the veins of this desert home. A servant passes with a tray of chilled date milk. You take it gratefully, the copper sweating against your hand. It tastes like silk and sugar and snow. Your thoughts wander. What happens to the Yakhchāl in winter? You find yourself descending again, back into the cool corridors of that conical vault. This time, you're guided by an older man with a long beard and ink-stained fingers. He introduces himself as the ice ledger keeper, responsible for tracking every block that enters and leaves the chamber. We harvest the ice during the coldest nights, he says, tapping his tablet of wax and bone. And store it like treasure, not for gold, but for life. And indeed, winter isn't a time of rest for these structures, it's their harvest season. Shallow pools are dug, water poured, and as temperatures dip, layers of ice are gathered at dawn and carried into the vault. Layer upon layer, compacted, covered with straw or ash for insulation. It's part science, part ritual, part frenzy. Because come summer, that stockpile becomes survival. Historians still debate exactly how long a well-maintained Yakhchāl could preserve ice. Some claim nearly a full year. Others argue the math only works in ideal conditions, proper sealing, shade, low humidity. Regardless, no one denies that the feat was extraordinary for its time. Especially when you consider this all predates electricity by over 2 millennia. You peer into the darkness. Behind you, another team prepares for tomorrow's collection. Ropes, baskets, long-handled scrapers. The tools are humble, but the choreography is practiced. You imagine the rhythm of boots crunching frost, of low chants in the pre-dawn cold. Ice, after all, doesn't wait. A strange question surfaces. What if the Yakhchāl isn't just technology? What if it's also symbol? You remember a carved tablet you passed earlier? It bore a relief, a lion curled at the base of a snow-covered tree, beneath it a chalice shaped suspiciously like a modern ice cream cup. Some say it represents eternal coolness, a sort of heavenly comfort granted by wise kings. Others believe it's metaphor, a visual pun for peace and preservation. You like both answers. The old man taps his stylus and shrugs. In summer, even the gods need shade. Later, you find yourself in the city bazaar. Daylight again, probably imagined, but you go with it. Traders hawk everything from cinnamon to dyed wool, but a particular stall draws a crowd. A vendor stands behind a block of packed snow, slicing off thin layers into ceramic cups. Over that, he pours a mixture of honey, saffron, and grape molasses. He hands them to wide-eyed children and weary travelers alike. You taste it. It's sweet, floral, cold, and utterly disarming. Royal treat, the vendor says with a grin. But you get it for free. First-timer's luck. You suspect he says that to everyone, but it works. Next door, an older woman is selling insulated urns made from double-walled clay. She explains that her ancestors used similar designs to transport cold liquids across the empire, without them freezing or boiling over. Ingenious. She pats one affectionately and says, "This one made it to Persepolis and back, in summer." You marvel again at the extent of it all. Ice, in an empire without modernity. Cold, crafted and managed across deserts, mountains, and politics. There's a quiet power in that, a reminder that climate didn't define their limits, their minds did. Later, someone tells you a story, half legend, half bureaucratic footnote. Once, a Persian general stationed at the empire's southernmost outpost demanded ice in midsummer as a show of dominance. His request was considered absurd. But a relay of couriers and caravans set out from the capital, using covered carts and tightly wrapped straw bundles. Weeks later, they arrived, with one block remaining, half its size but still sharp at the edges. He ordered it shaved over mango pulp and laughed so hard they carved the event into his tomb. Historians still argue whether the story's true, or if it was just a metaphor for imperial reach. But whether fact or fable, the lesson is the same. People go to great lengths for comfort, for wonder, for a taste of winter in the furnace of July. And you, lying once again beneath the stars, are no different. Your last thought before sleep is of that first step into the Yakhchāl. The surprise of it. The cool breath on your face. The impossible in the middle of the mundane. Maybe that's the real invention, not just refrigerators, but reassurance. That even in a world without wires, buttons, or apps, people found a way to bring the seasons into balance. And they did it with mud, wind, and ice. You wake in the quiet hours before dawn. The world is not quite light, not quite dark, just that soft blue hush that blankets everything in a gentle pause. Around you, the rooftop sleepers stir slightly beneath their blankets. A dog stretches. Somewhere a call to prayer floats faintly on the breeze. And the air? Still crisp, hot. You smile, realizing it's not just the hour, it's the Yakhchāl. That ancient conical relic still working its quiet miracle beneath the earth. You don't need to touch it. You just feel it. The desert doesn't rule the night anymore. Persia made a deal with it long ago. And you've spent 2 hours walking through that pact, stone by stone, breath by breath. Now you're wandering deeper, not into the vault, but into the empire it cooled. The Achaemenids, the mighty kings of kings, stretching their control from the Indus Valley to the Aegean Sea. You drift through Persepolis, columns towering like frozen tree trunks, their tops etched with bulls and eagles. Every line carved in daylight, but every summer breeze cooled by night ice. It wasn't just about comfort. It was status. Power. A cup of chilled rosewater in a gilded saucer could seal an alliance faster than a scroll of parchment. Royal banquets featured sherbets, not the powdered sugar candies but frosted drinks flavored with cherry pulp or cucumber. Made possible by ice stored in yakhchāls built with royal funds. One king even sent blocks of snow to Babylon during a heat wave. Some historians argue it was a diplomatic stunt. Others insist it was religious, a gift for a temple ritual requiring cold. And some, cheekily, think it was just a birthday surprise. No one really knows. But it happened. Somehow. You duck into a side alley of history. Here, a lesser-known tale unfurls. There's record, possibly exaggerated, of a Yakhchāl built by a widowed noblewoman. Her husband had died in battle, and in her grief, she decided to build a structure that would outlast his name. So she consulted masons, bribed engineers, and funded one of the largest icy houses in the western provinces. Not for trade but for mourning. She called it her Tower of Frozen Time. Every year, on his death day, she'd serve sweetened snow to every household in her district. We don't know what happened to her or the tower. but clay tablets mention it as late as the 3rd century. Maybe it collapsed. Maybe it still stands, under sand and scrub, waiting for someone to stumble across it. You step around another bend. Now you're in the early Islamic era. The Yakhchāls evolve. Their use expands, their construction refines. Instead of pure mud, they begin to mix in gypsum and goat hair, stronger, more water resistant. Ventilation gets smarter. Drainage systems get added. And slowly, they spread beyond Persia's borders. Arab scholars write about them. Traders carry the idea west. Some believe that Ike houses in 17th century France took design notes, unacknowledged of course, from these ancient models. Others dismiss that as romantic nonsense. Historians still argue whether the cross-pollination was real or coincidental. But you, lying in this dream-warped tour, are less concerned with evidence than experience. The echoes are real. Whether from Iran, India, Italy, or beyond, cold has always meant control. And that control has always been beautiful. You begin to fade again, drifting not into sleep this time but toward a closing. You return, one last time, to the slope of a conical mound. It's not grand. It's worn and cracked. Kids play near it. Someone's hung laundry from the outer bricks. But you know what it is. You walk closer. The door is locked now. Time has claimed the inside. But the air still holds a memory of cool. And if you press your ear to the wall, you could swear it still breathes. So you step back. You close your eyes. And you thank this odd, brilliant dirt and dream refrigerator for reminding you that even in the harshest heat, humanity finds its shade. Even in ancient dust, we build futures with comfort in mind. Even without wires or tech, we preserve sweetness. And now, as the sky warms and your thoughts soften, let the last chill of the Yakhchāl fade gently into your breath. The stone is still. The night is stiller. No more wind tunnels. No more ice blocks to carry. Just you, sinking into the hush of ancient knowledge, of people who shaped deserts into oases with nothing but their hands and hope. The voices have gone quiet now. The engineers, the kings, the widows, the fruit vendors. Their lives frozen in time, preserved like the blocks beneath their feet once were. They ask for nothing. Only that you remember. That you rest. Your body grows heavier. Your breathing slows, like a distant fan humming behind a bedroom door. All those images, mud domes, saffron syrup, sleeping rooftops, they begin to melt together like snow left out just long enough. Not vanishing. Just softening. Absorbing into your dreams. There's no rush. Let your heartbeat match the rhythm of ancient pickaxes. Let your thoughts drift like dust motes in a desert sunrise. You've walked 2,000 years tonight. So sink. Sink into that still, cool quiet where history is no longer taught. It's simply felt. The Yakhchāl is asleep now. And so are you.